As a parent, sometimes we have this dream or vision about what we think parenting will look like or what it should look like. And sometimes even before you have kids, when you see kids out in the community and parents yelling at their kids and kids just falling apart, and you might even have thought to yourself, well, I'm not going to be like that. My kid won't behave that way, because I know I did. I thought, I know how to work with kids. I know how to manage behaviors. I know how to set limits, so I'm not going to struggle the same way. Until you find yourself in that same position, and then you start to realize, wow, sometimes those strategies and those limits and all the behavior strategies that they're not always going to work. And so then what do? And so you might even go to counseling, and you might talk to somebody who specializes in parenting, and they tell you all the different strategies to try, and they're the same ones that you've already been trying. And they might even say that it's not that bad, or people might, make comments to you that, that's just part of life, and that's just what we have to deal with as parents. And so sometimes that might make you want to cry or scream yourself and have your own meltdown, because it just gets to be, sometimes it's too much. All the crying, all the screaming, all the non-stop defiance and falling apart, and you don't even know why. And you might be trying so hard to keep it together yourself, so hard, because you know that if you lose it and start yelling at your kids or screaming or reacting in whatever way, it's just going to trigger them even more. And so then you might even find yourself asking yourself, what do I do now? And you might just feel like, I just want to pull my own hair out. I am trying very hard inside my own head to just keep myself calm and trying to keep myself so that I am not going to lose it. And I might even want to go into the bathroom and shut the door and just cry, because I don't even know what else to do. And I'm here to tell you that it's a lot. It is a lot. And I feel that sometimes we as parents, whether or not the expectation is coming from somebody else or whether it's just coming from our own self, we have this expectation that we need to be able to fix it. And that if our kids are misbehaving and we're not able to calm them down, it's a reflection on us. And you just feel that the whole world is looking at you and everyone is judging you, and you're judging yourself. And you have mom guilt and you have frustration because you don't know what to do. You're overwhelmed because you don't have the solutions. And at this point, you don't even know who to talk to, and you don't even know where to start, because you feel like no one understands what you're going through and what it is that you deal with on a regular basis. And you are mentally and physically exhausted from all of the meltdowns and power struggles, and it seems like it never ends. And you start to feel disconnected from your family, your friends, your kids, and sometimes even yourself. And you have this daily stress because you feel like it is never going to end and it's never going to get any better. You're trying to manage it alone, and you feel like no one understands. And it seems hopeless that things will ever change. And I'm speaking about this not just as a therapist who works with kids and works with parents. I'm speaking about this because I was that parent, and this is how I felt, and that's where I was. And I felt like no one could help me, and no one had the answers. And I just felt like over and over again that people were just judging me, that I was the problem. I was the problem. My kids were the problem. We were all a problem, but nobody could help me. Nobody had the solutions. And it definitely got to a point where I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't even want to sometimes talk to my own kids, because if I did, I just felt like I was losing it and yelling and just wasn't patient. I wasn't being the kind of parent that I needed to be, and I wasn't the kind of parent that I wanted to be. And I just really felt like, why can't I fix this? Why can't I change this? What is so wrong? What am I doing wrong? And that's when I learned I wasn't the problem, and my kids weren't the problem. My kids were stuck in the vicious cycle of stress, anxiety, fear, and fight or flight. and it was just causing me to be triggered. And then I was reacting and triggering them even more. And so it was this vicious cycle that was just going round and round and round and round. And I was so mentally drained because all I wanted was to have a little bit of peace and normalcy in our lives. I wanted to be able to go simple places like the grocery store or a car ride or go up the street without fearing that somebody was going to start yelling or screaming and just having a meltdown that might not stop for quite some time. And my fuse just got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, to the point where my kids started to say, "Mom, we can't even ask you a question without you snapping." And I didn't feel like I was snapping, but I was. And even if I wasn't really snapping, they thought I was, because they were in such a state of fight or flight that they were misreading all of my body language and all of my cues. And I had to really be mindful about what I said and the way that I said it, so that I wasn't continuing to trigger them, which would then spiral them into having more meltdowns and more overreactions to things. And that's when I really started learning about the nervous system, and not just for my kids, but really started to have a better understanding that I really needed to fix me. I needed to work on my own nervous system. I had to learn how to stay grounded. I had to learn how to get to a place where I could reset my own brain and nervous system so that I wasn't going into fight or flight or getting to a point of being overreactive. I needed to bring myself to a point of reset so I could stay grounded, because when I got to that place, that's when I was able to help my kids to come out of it as well. And so over the past couple years, I've really been studying about the nervous system and just our impact on our bodies and our emotions, and how it's so important to keep that nervous system in check, because that's really what is driving a lot of these emotions. And that what comes across as being oppositional or defiant or anxious or whatever it is, there is an underlying reason most of the time that is triggering those behaviors. And maybe you might not be able to figure out what those underlying behaviors are in that moment, but you have to stay at a place where you can be calm and collective and regulated, because once your kid starts to spiral, you can't have a rational conversation with them in that moment. But if you're able to stay grounded and you're able to bring their nervous system back to a regulated place, then you can help them to be more rational, and you're able to help them to re-engage in conversation and to re-engage with you, so that you can figure out what is it that's going on and then how I can help them. Now, granted, a lot of these things aren't going to work with a kid that's nonverbal, or with younger kids. You can't necessarily work on these things with them, but there are things that you can do. And that's where co-regulation comes into play. And if you don't know what co-regulation is, it is basically, I can help you to stay calm by me being calm. Sometimes our kids don't need us to fix it. And sometimes we're not going to be able to help them to come out of it and to calm down and to stop the meltdown. Sometimes they just need us to just be there. Sometimes just the energy of being present and being there and being that calm person is enough to help them to stop spiraling and to be able to come back to a place where I'm able to, calm down eventually on my own. That might mean that you just sit there and you hug them, or you just sit there and sit next to them and let them cry or scream and just listen and not do anything, but just be present. But you can't be present and you can't be calm for them if you don't know how to do it on your own for yourself. So you have to really work on learning how to reset your own nervous system so that you can help to reset theirs. And I really strongly believe that that's a big part of the principle about what polyvagal theory is with kids, is that we need to be that regulating force. We need to learn how to regulate our own nervous system so that I can help their nervous system. And in the moment, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy. It's not. But when you're doing it little by little by little, eventually it gets easier and easier and easier. And there's different ways that you can do it. Sometimes it's that you're working on sensory diet, and sometimes you're working on calming strategies, and sometimes you might be changing their diet, and sometimes you might be doing, protocols like the Safe and Sound protocol or other, things that you're stimulating the vagus nerve to help with resetting so that you can bring their nervous system back to a place of safety and calmness. But I know as parents, we don't know what to do, and the doctors don't know where to send you, and they don't know how to help, and medication's not always the answer, and counseling's not always the answer, and ABA is not always the answer. Sometimes it's just really looking at the nervous system at that level, and what can we do to bring that back into balance. And that's where OT can really be helpful. And OTs, I know that there's a lot of OTs out there that don't think that they can do these things, but you can. You just need to learn the tools and how to use them efficiently. And I know I'm learning on a regular basis, but I am trying very hard to learn more and to teach families and to teach therapists so that you feel empowered to know what to do so that you can get yourself to a better place. So if you want to learn more, we do have some courses. We do have some AOTA CEU courses. We do have different resources available on our website. I'm constantly sending out emails with just different things for you to be able to try because I am here. I want to help families feel empowered, that they know what to do so that they can be in a better place, because I know I felt very alone when I went through that period of time. I needed somebody, and there wasn't anybody that I could find that knew what I was going through or how to help me. And then once I found it, I wanted to be able to help other people so that they didn't have to go through the same thing. If you want more information, reach out. I can give you information on the different courses, on the different tools. Some of these things are free. We're just here to help. And I just want you to know you're not alone. And it doesn't need to stay that way. And we're here to help.